Good morning. I'm Dr. Sunanda Samadar Corrado, co-hosting the John Telford Show, coming to you 10 o'clock every Thursday morning on Wjzz Cool Tv, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Dr. John Telford is a former public school superintendent, a former world-class athlete, and conqueror of Olympic champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, longtime civil rights crusader, and the author of 6 Detroit-oriented books: The Poet Emperor of Earth, What Old Men Know, Creative Insubordination, The Will Robinson Story, The Poetic Prancings of Mad John, his explosive autobiography, A Life on the Run, and another forthcoming poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. He's also show at WCHB AM 1340, Detroit's gospel station, Saturday mornings at 9:30 and Monday evenings at 6:30. That's Saturday mornings at 9:30 and Monday evenings at 6:30. His books are available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or just by calling the good doctor at 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Dr. John Telford has been called a legend and also a lightning rod for controversy. He has received the Detroit City Council Spirit of the Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award. He was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year in 2001, and a Detroit track has been named for him. His website is www.alifeontherun.com, and his email address is drjohntelford@aol.com. That's drjohntelford@aol.com. Now, without further ado, I present to you that radical crusading old native Detroiter, Dr. John Telford.
Thank you, Dr. Sunanda Corrado, that PhD from Columbia University, who is an anthropologist by training. Dr. Corrado has been teaching at Wayne County Community College for 10 years, and she looks 17, so how can that be? But she's been teaching there for 10 years, and over 10 years.
Oh, over 10 years, heck yeah.
And
I don't sound 17. Once we open our mouths, brown women sound different, right?
And she's currently a researcher at, for the Detroit Equity Action Lab, which is housed in the WSU Law School, and founder and CEO of Education by Design. I want to share a poem with you to start, because we have Letitia Johnson in the studio today, and we're
District 4 City Council.
Running for District 4 City Council, and we're going to be interviewing her. Mm-hmm. But first, I just want to recite a little poem called Blue Salt. Wrote this poem back in 1968 because this is a poetry program. You know, I'm supposed to be doing poetry and not interviewing all these politicians. But Letitia Johnson is not a politician. Yeah. We'll be talking about what she is, but she's going to be really good for the city, and we've got to get her elected. Okay, here's a poem, Blue Salt. My name is Detroit, and my chair is squeaking. I hope you're not hearing this doggone chair squeaking. I should have got another chair. My name is Detroit. I'm a blue-collar town. Blue salt melts my mid-March snow. Speedy cars and sprinters spring from me. I father fierce fighters and funky music. In a Motown moment, I can spit the blues right back in a bureaucrat's eye. Have you never seen blue salt? No complex chemistry here, only the old color of a new sky. And there's a new sky dawning over Detroit today, because we've got the next city council member sitting in the studio on the John Telford Detroit show, and we're going to be interviewing her. Her name is Letitia Johnson. I've known her for a number of years, ever since she worked the desk at the River House over at 8900 East Jefferson, where I reside. And I also want to give a shout out to the students and staff at Frederick Douglass Academy, where I am now the poet in residence. You know, I'm the DPSCD poet in residence. I go around all the high schools reading my poetry, but Frederick Douglass is my home school. And Southeastern used to be my home school, but now it's Frederick Douglass. Okay, on the John Telford Show in recent weeks, we actually it was it last week we had W.F. Hodo? Was it last week?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
We had
W.F.
Mr. Hodo
Hodo.
last week.
And you know,
He's a write-in candidate. HODO WF HODO. He is a write-in candidate.
District 3.
Yes.
Yeah, for District 3. And you know, now that I think of it, he's got a fundraiser at Mr. Mapp's Lounge on Monday, October the 18th.
Yes.
Fundraiser for W.H. Hodo at Mr. Mapp's Lounge on Monday, October the 18th from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m., Monday, October the 18th. That's 625 East 7 Mile, a half mile east of I-75. So make sure that you attend that fundraiser for W.H. Hodo. And next week, we're going to have Anthony Adams on the show. He's running for mayor against Mike Duggan. We're going to have Anthony Adams on the show this coming week, which will be October the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. And who else have we got? We've got on the 28th, we've got Denzel McCampbell coming on, and he is running for city clerk.
Yes, he is.
You know, my old student, Beverly Kendall Walker, ran for city clerk, and he beat her out in the primary. So now we've all got to get behind Denzel McCampbell.
Who's an excellent candidate, too.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Denzel will be an excellent candidate. We've got to get him elected. I also promised Reverend Ed Pinckney that I would mention that, and he's in Benton Harbor, where the tap water is poisonous. You know, shades of Flint. The tap water is poisonous now in Benton Harbor, and Reverend Ed Pinckney in Benton Harbor is trying to buy 1,500 cases of water per month. 1,500 cases of water every month to distribute to the residents of Benton Harbor. So you can go to bhbanco.org, bhbanco.org, where there is a PayPal. That's B as in boy, bhbanco, B-A-N-C-O, bhbanco.org, where there is a PayPal for Reverend Pinckney to be able to get those bottles of water for the residents of Benton Harbor. Okay, I had some other things I was going to say, but I don't have to say them right now, at least, because I want to welcome you, Letitia Johnson, candidate for City Council in District 4.
District 4.
To the John Telford Detroit Show on WJZZ Cool TV. So, Letitia, I'm going to start right in with some questions for you.
Okay.
Here's the first one. How did you go from promoting Detroit for the Convention Bureau, into running for office?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I wouldn't have missed having you. We got to get you elected.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I went from promoting Detroit with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I did that for 8 years. And you know, that within itself is just an interesting story because I've never seen myself as a salesperson. So I started at the Convention Bureau in finance, working with our director of finance. And a year after I started there, I think the board and executive leadership saw something.
Excuse me, just for a second. I'm going to get off this chair.
Okay.
Because it is squeaking, and I hope that it's not interrupting our audio. I'm going to try to get another chair and get rid of this.
You got to switch it around.
That's what I'm going to try to do. Maybe this one won't squeak.
The Convention Bureau, this was like back in 2010?
Oh gosh, I left in 20. I'll tell you
man,
about
this
it.
one squeaks too.
I'll tell you about it. So I started there in 2000.
Yeah.
in 2000.
Oh,
so
wow.
so
And
I'm
then-
a little older than I look too. Uh,
Both of
You're
you guys
beautiful.
look like you're teenagers.
Absolutely.
That's
Right.
unbelievable.
and I've had people say that to me on the campaign trail, believe it or
Really?
not. Yes, yes. So I have to share with everybody, I've graduated from high school almost 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was
I
Kettering,
can't believe
right?
that. It was Kettering.
Yeah.
It was Kettering. So I started at the Convention Bureau in 2000 and started in finance, and really hoped to elevate my finance career there. But the executive leadership saw something else in me and asked me to move into membership sales at the time. And membership sales essentially was promoting the work that we did at the Convention Bureau to the museums, restaurants, hotels, making sure that everybody was a member and being involved with the work that we were doing.
Talk to the mic, Letitia. Make sure you're.
And so I went from membership sales to convention sales. In convention sales, my focus was promoting Metro Detroit to national conventions and
Nice.
making sure that we could help secure jobs within the hospitality and tourism industry by way of the tourists that were coming to Detroit, the conventions that were coming to Detroit, to help continue to build momentum in Detroit as well as making an economic impact in the area. I didn't realize at the time just how impactful that position was
Yeah.
in securing jobs for so many Detroiters. And when I go to different meetings now, I realize that so many of the members within the hospitality industry were union members. So many people were union members, and different unions that represent different people throughout that industry. And so I was there for a total of 8 years, and then left there and went to work for the Detroit Marriott in the Renaissance Center, and did pretty much the same thing, but specifically focused on representing the hotel and working with the Convention Bureau at the time to bring in national conventions, and specifically focused on the package that we provided at the hotel. We went through a corporate reorganization, and that was in 2010. And we all had to reapply for our jobs.
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, it was quite interesting. And I had to give it some thought as to whether or not I wanted to stay. But the general manager at the hotel said, Letitia, I want you to stay. I want you to be here on site, on property at the hotel. And so I reapplied for my job, had to go through interviews and everything, and ended up being one of the salespeople on property at the hotel. And 3 months into the job, so many things had changed. I was a number. I was no longer a person. I felt that way, right? And so I said, you know what? This isn't for me. It's not for me. So I left, and shortly after, I ended up starting my own business doing event planning. But after that, I just said, you know what, maybe it's time for me to just kind of take a break. That break didn't happen. I had already been on the board of my neighborhood association, East English Village. I was the second vice president at the time. And
so this is 2010, where we're about to go through emergency financial management and all this stuff, and here you are. Do your thing.
making this move.
Yeah,
right?
in 2010 of all time. Yeah,
absolutely.
amazing time.
Absolutely.
Horrible, amazing.
Yeah.
And it was right around the time that we were going through the housing market decline.
Yep, the
Right?
recession. Yep.
Absolutely. And so on the board, I can remember saying to the president of the neighborhood association, so what do you feel is my role as the second vice president, right? I wasn't the first vice president then, I was the second vice president. And the president said, well, you really don't have a role. You're like the vice president of the United States. We back
been
one another
waiting.
up, right?
Yeah, president and waiting. Incidentally, I interrupt you for a second because it's time for a commercial.
Oh, and you're watching the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to us in our various programming. And thank you for watching Wjzz Cool TV, one of the coolest stations in the world.
I was going to ask you too, Letitia. Was Reuben Porter your counselor at Kettering? You remember Reuben Porter?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Because he was there when you were there. Anyway, that was just an aside.
So you're the second president at the East English Village?
Neighborhood Association.
Second
Yeah.
vice president.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And something changed in a short period of time where I went from second vice president to first vice president. But that's just a little side note. But we were dealing with the housing market decline, and we, like so many other Detroit neighborhoods, were dealing with people that were coming in, stripping houses, squatters that were in the houses, and they had a lot of illegal hookups with gas and water, and some of them didn't even have water. And I just think it's unconscionable for people to have to go to those lengths.
Well, water's a human right.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've got to make sure everyone has water. Men, women, children, particularly children and old folks. I mean, it's. I got into a little battle about water cutoffs when I had the mayor on my other show, WCHB, because that absolutely has to happen. We cannot cut people's water off for any reason, whatever. We've got to find a way to make sure that they have water.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And even we'll take it to the next step, that we need to be creative and find ways to make sure that everybody has shelter. Mm-hmm. We have so many houses within the Detroit Land Bank Authority's inventory that there should be no one without shelter.
Yes,
we have more abandoned houses than we have abandoned people.
There's very little housing stock in the city that is not rehabilitatable.
Right.
I don't know why they're not reworking the east side. I don't know why they're taking so long.
We're going to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to take care of that.
Right?
Because
we got to get you on that city council, because you're talking my language, and you're talking the language of the common man. And listeners on the John Telfer Detroit show today, this is Letitia Johnson. She can't be bought. She's very smart. She's educated. She's experienced. And you've got to get the word out. And we're going to be sending this program out to just about everybody. We've got to get Letitia Johnson elected to the Detroit City Council on the 2nd of November of this year. And Letitia, I don't want to take up too much time because there's some really important questions that I want to get to with you. And here's another one. In the year 2007, you, Letitia Johnson, founded Mecca, a community development nonprofit. What does Mecca stand for, by the way?
Mecca stands for Morningside, East English Village, and Cornerstone Village Community Advocates.
Okay. Around the Alger Theater area.
It is.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. That's
all the way to the east side.
Yeah, that's where Virginia Starkey has her boutique.
Yes.
She's opening it now. She had it in the River House for years.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she did. But now she's reopening it over by the Alger Theater. She's going to have a grand opening coming up.
Okay.
In the middle of the month, which we're almost there now.
So whereas the 3rd district is completely neglected, the 4th district now is becoming a huge economic empowerment zone. What does this mean for people who are already there right now?
It's becoming very challenging as it relates to housing. Our property value. So as I was talking about the housing market decline, you could buy a house in East English Village for, let's say, $15,000 during that time. Now we're selling houses for upwards of $200,000.
Yeah.
So rental rates have skyrocketed, doubled in many cases. And so it's becoming very challenging for low-income families to stay in that neighborhood. But that's one of the things that we are focused on doing with Mecca Development Corporation. We have some skill-building programs that we do. So we teach people how to improve properties. And we also have started rehabbing a couple of small houses within Cornerstone Village that we want to get started in creating affordable housing units within that particular area.
That has to be done, because the city is in danger of becoming gentrified. That whole stretch where I live, which is on at 8900 East Jefferson, Crane's business called it the New Gold Coast. That was a couple of years ago. And there's a unit in the River House right now selling for $375,000. Yeah, I mean, it's
There's an international realtor named Heather Dell who was talking about East English Village. I think it might have been on Fox or something. She said there was a resurgence in redlining going on, but in other kind of ways. For especially single mothers or young black families who can't afford to move in, she's saying the paperwork just isn't being pushed fast enough for them to actually acquire the housing that they deserve. I mean, they can afford it, all the paperwork's in, but it just, they never get their houses.
Anyway, Letitia, I wanted to ask you, how has your having headed up Mecca, this organization, for the past 7 years, prepared you for city council in your estimation?
Yeah. So when Mecca was started, it was born out of conversations that we had on the board of East English Village, because we wanted to look inward and identify what we as neighbors could do to help stabilize the neighborhood. And that's when we started talking about a nonprofit community development corporation. And when we talked about it, it was just talk about having it for East English Village. But I thought it would be a greater organization to have for 3 neighborhoods, because, a lot of times we see in Detroit, you'll be in one really nice community and you go around the block and it's a devastated community.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
If we all came together, we can work together to help one another, to help improve all of our communities. And so this was an effort to bring 3 neighborhoods together and the residents from 3 neighborhoods together for us to determine how we wanted to see our community revitalized. So we have 4 areas of focus that we are particularly focused on, and it's around human development. It is, working with our youth. We have a literacy program where we partner with the with Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
Wow, I love her.
And we mail a book to every child 5 and under who enrolls in the program up until they are 5 years old and ready to go to school. We're really trying to encourage parents to read the books with their children and get them acclimated to reading and get them excited about reading, so that when they start school, they already know how to read. That's key for us. We have some wellness programs that we do with our seniors. And then we also do our skill building programs. We teach people how to reupholster furniture. Something that is a dying trade, but it's something that you don't need to have a degree to do
and be completely in the antique industry.
Absolutely.
You can make a career of it, and what you're doing with literacy is very, very important. I should probably hook you up with Helen Moore. Helen Moore and I are on a committee for the DPSCD, a reading committee that's chaired by Charlonda Buckman, and I've got to get you interacting with some of these folks, and I've got to get them interacting with you and getting them supportive of your candidacy for city council. This program, not only is this going to go on Facebook, it's going to I'm going to email it to a few thousand people too. I mean, we're getting this thing all over the place. But let me.
What I like it is the investment in the human capital that's already there, the brilliance that is already there, and kind of building a bridge between the differentials of wealth in the community, because the differentials on some level could be superficial. It could be just about getting those skills to repair your home. Right. And so I just want to say that this exceptional way, because you don't hear about a lot of community development corporations. Well, how many are there in Detroit? Are there any besides you guys?
Oh, yes.
Nonprofit?
There are many. The one that we always think about and everybody wants to model is Grandmont Rosedale Community Development Corporation. They've been around 30 plus years and they're doing phenomenal work, and they are residents in the community, building the community.
Thank you.
I understand that your opponent has been calling you out for certain support that you've gotten. How are you replying to your opponent regarding this?
So, one of the things to be clear about is that my opponent and I both pursued several different organizations for their endorsement and their support. he actually has more union organizations that are supporting him than I do. But they're the smaller union
Well, I'm a union
organizations.
member and I support you.
Well, thank you.
You know, I'm back in the DFT for the
And-
first time in 60 years. You know, can you believe it? But I am a Federation member again.
Awesome.
Solidarity
But
forever.
That's right. And my husband is a UAW Local 7 member.
All right.
And
All right.
I volunteer on a full-time basis. So, listen, I come from a union household.
Amen.
And so I'm glad to say that the UAW Region 1 has endorsed the campaign. For
good.
this general,
Congratulations.
thank you, and several other union organizations, SEIU Local 1, they have been overwhelmingly phenomenal in support of the campaign, and so I'm extremely appreciative of that. And so within that, there's been some discussion about dark money, and I think people don't realize what dark money is.
Right.
It's it can be the unions
Like the deep state.
sending out mailers on your behalf. They can't coordinate with you. I have actually personally run across people that are out knocking doors on behalf of my campaign, and I know nothing about it. I only knew because I was out knocking in that same area as them.
Well, I've been pushing for your campaign before you knew about it.
Well, that's awesome. And there are so many people that are doing that. There's so many people that are doing it. And so I want to make sure that people know and understand that there were some mailings that went out that benefited my campaign. My opponent has a reputation that precedes him. And there are a lot of people that are working against him because of his reputation. And so I think that's primary to some people. And my work and everything that I've done in the community is secondary, right? And so I'm not influenced by some of the people that have been working on my behalf. There was a council member who's apparently tied to an organization that sent out a mailer on my behalf. I have come out and disavowed that support because I want my record and my integrity to speak for itself, to stand for itself. People in the community know who I am. They know the work that I've done over 14 years. It's very unlikely that you'll see someone who has a finance degree, who has volunteered in the community for 14 years, but for the last 7 years done it on a full-time basis. And just passionate about helping others, providing resources, and giving people access to some things that usually they may not know anything about, because you have to go to these meetings to know about these resources.
So why did you go from volunteering and having this lucrative career to volunteering full time?
I wanted to step away from corporate America, and volunteering for me is something that I think we all should do. When I look back at my life, I realized that there was one person in particular who was so instrumental in my success, and that was my chemistry teacher at Kettering.
Really?
That was Miss Hammy.
Miss Hammy.
Miss
Okay.
Hammy. She got me enrolled in a program that every summer throughout high school I went to U of M, and I stayed at U of M on campus and worked with a chemical engineering professor and a chemistry professor. And during that time, I was doing so many science fairs and, winning ribbons in the NAACP AXO fair and, all of those things. That helped me with public speaking. It really helped to catapult my career. And a lot of times when I think about it, a lot of people used to say to me, I always thought you were shy. You were so quiet. I speak when I need to speak, but I don't have a problem with public speaking, and it's because of those experiences that I had. And so for me, it's about giving back. It's about recognizing that I grew up very impoverished and realizing what it is that helped me to get through that. And it was really just having the support of someone to be able to do it. And so I offer that support to others within the community, and that's why I do it as a full-time volunteer.
Well, in my estimation, you are the perfect candidate, in my estimation, for this council, because I know for a fact that you are experienced, You are dedicated. You can't be bought, and that's very important because I'm worried about what's been happening in this city, with some of the other council members who can be bought or who have been apparently stealing, and we just can't have that.
And you're actively developing District 4 for the past 7-8 years, full time.
I worked pro bono as superintendent of schools in 2012 and 2013, and then the EAA, which was a rogue school district that Governor Snyder had created, tried to buy me away because they knew no one else with my credential was going to do that job. And they offered me a lot of money. My late lamented wife Adrian was very upset with me when I did not take that money. But I could not have faced Helen Moore, Lamar Lemons.
Right.
I think Duggan took that job when you were. Wasn't he the president of EA before he became mayor?
He was the treasurer, I believe, of the EA. I ran for mayor. I ran against him. I was one of many people running against him for mayor in 2013. And one of the reasons I did, they wanted me to run and debate him and try to get him away from the EAA. It actually worked. He resigned from the EAA. I probably helped him win, when that happened. But anyway, we need another commercial.
And you're watching the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please follow, share, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching Wjzz Cool TV, one of the few black-owned stations in the world.
Amen. Okay, comes another question I'm going to shoot at you, Letitia.
Okay.
This is a visceral one. What would you like to accomplish on city council? What goals will you have when you get on city council?
So I really want to continue doing the work that I've done in the community. A lot of it we've done as a grassroots movement with no support whatsoever from our local government. And now I see ways that we can continue to do the work and do it on a greater scale.
What do you mean no support from local government? What's been the experience of the residents there to feel there's no support from city?
Well, no support by way of acknowledgement, financial support, coming in to help improve the lives of our residents. It's been, whichever grant you can apply for and get from the philanthropic community, but I think it's more the lack of an acknowledgement about the work that's being done in the community that is most egregious to residents, right?
Yeah.
When you're on the ground doing the work and you know what the challenges are, you know what needs to be done to address those issues. But without that support, it's an uphill battle. It's a real uphill battle. Last year was our first year that we got a $50,000 multi-year grant within the nonprofit organization. So our goal is to hire staff so that we can continue to do the work. And so my focus is making sure that, as we talked about it, making sure that Detroiters in particular have access to affordable homes.
Oh my God, yes. And I wrote a note to myself to speak about that specifically. And I wanted to tell listeners and watchers to pick up the phone and call 209-456-1111. And I'm going to give you that number again. Anytime between 11 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, to tell President Biden to make sure and to fully support working families, children, the aging and disabled, and pay for these investments by taxing the rich. Taxing the rich, making the corporations pay for their fair share, because they're not doing that now. And that was just an aside. I'm going to give you that number again, folks. Those of you who are listening and watching, the number is 209-456-1111. Write that down. Make that call. 456-1111. Okay, Letitia, that was just an aside, and I interrupted you, but you were saying.
No,
you
you're fine.
had you got a multi-year grant.
Yes.
You institutionalized your what you're doing, but there's still not an acknowledgement from the city of the work that's going on. So the city must have its own plans for the district that they're not telling the district about. It seems like there's a chasm.
Well, I'm sure the city has their own plans, but we do know in our particular area, and so I talk about my neighborhood, but recognizing that District 4 has challenges that we see throughout the entire district that are not just specific to the area that I live in. And what people, I think, tend to forget and disregard is when I talk about affordable housing, because I've seen property values skyrocket so quickly, and I've seen personally families displaced because they went from $850 a month in rent to $1,300 a month.
Taxes going up.
Absolutely.
For no reason.
And for the neighborhoods where that hasn't happened yet, it's coming.
Yeah.
And I want people to recognize that it's coming.
It's pretty quiet,
and
right?
the goal is to address it before it gets there, before it's so widespread.
Yeah.
Right? We need to be able to make sure that Detroiters have access to home ownership opportunities because that's how we build wealth.
That's right.
That's how we build wealth. And to continue to see families displaced just unravels that entire idea, that notion of building wealth through residential development, through home ownership.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things. And I know a lot of people have that thought and idea of affordable housing as part of their platform. For me, it's affordable housing. Yes, it's about home ownership.
Yes.
I also
Property.
Absolutely. And within that, as you say, properties, we have to look at commercial properties as well.
Yeah. We are so overtaxed for Detroit.
Extremely overtaxed.
As much as New York. For commercial properties, it makes no sense.
Commercial and residential.
Residential too. Yeah.
Right? But, within our commercial corridors, we see so many blighted commercial buildings that sit and they're closed up. They continue to decay, and we're not doing anything about it. There is an ordinance on the books that talks about a property only being vacant for 6 months. Once it goes beyond that point, we need some enforcement to make sure that these properties are not just sitting in people's hands.
Yeah, look at the old Packard plant.
Oh,
what
my goodness.
What are we gonna do with that? I mean, look at that land.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's massive.
Yeah,
massive.
It's massive.
And a developer comes in and says they're going to develop this, and then it falls apart. And we see that with several development agreements that are being made with the Detroit Land Bank Authority. I know parts of that Herman Kiefer deal.
Right, yeah.
Herman Kiefer. FCA and Stellantis, we just have to make sure that we hold people's feet to the fire and that they do what they say they're going to do, or we start to retract the benefits that we've given to them.
Exactly.
There's no litmus test for whether a development that the city thinks is going to work. They just drop them like eggs and see what works without basically having any cues from the community.
There doesn't seem to be any routinely planned process.
Just shuffling properties until they skyrocket. It sounds like
it's
just yeah.
On paper, I guess it may look like it's a good deal and the person has the financing to be able to do it. But you know what? Our infrastructure in Detroit is so old that it takes a lot of capital to maintain it, let alone to revitalize it. So I think we have to have a true holistic approach to revitalizing our neighborhoods and our commercial corridors.
Right. Look what's happening to the roads, to the sewers. I mean, all of this flooding that we've been experiencing. Much of it, of course, is global warming, but we should have been ready for something like that, and we should have been rejuvenating those sewers. That some of them haven't been touched down there for a century or more.
Right.
And that is anyway. What else would you like to accomplish on city council? What other ideas do you have?
So,
Letitia?
one of the things that I'm really focused on is helping to reduce crime. Because, we talk about not having enough police officers. We talk about our police officers wanting to have them come from our community, wanting to see them walking the beat and things of that nature. And, I think about that. I have an 18-year-old stepson. I don't call him my stepson typically. He's my son.
Right.
Yeah.
When I think about whether or not I would want him to become a police officer today, I would absolutely say no. Why? Because crime is so high in Detroit. It hasn't come
It's like
down.
being a soldier on the front lines right now.
Exactly. Would you want to put your child out there?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So we have to look at how we reduce crime from the standpoint of supporting residents to help them gain skills, to get jobs, to keep them off of the street, because all of us who've had a 9-to-5 job, we know that when you get home, you're tired. You're tired. You're not going out to commit a crime. We have to address mental health challenges that people have and support that the co-response pilot program that the city is doing now, where they partner a mental health professional with our police officers
Which
to
is
make
an
sure.
excellent idea.
It
by the way.
is. Absolutely it is. But we have to be more supportive of people.
It'd be more like Law and Order than the conversation.
Exactly. And so in District 4, we don't have one rec center
yeah,
in our district.
that's true. Yeah.
No community center where we can convene, no rec center where we have young people who are engaged in positive, productive activity.
That is a crime in itself.
It is.
And when I was executive director of Detroit SNAP, Safe Neighborhoods Action Plan, in the 90s, I've done a lot of jobs in and out of education, and this was one where I felt very frustrated. I was working with gangs, working out of a police mini station on Shane, and I was trying to get these kids, not to shoot each other over girls and shoes and jackets and stuff. The only thing I was able to do was talk them out of shooting at each other in school. We finally succeeded in doing that. But school, and of course, I talk about school all the time. But you're talking about fighting crime. One good way to do it is to get the kids able to read, so they can get an education and they can contribute as dues-paying, salary-paid citizens to our economy. And it's right now,
because what they've already done is a literacy program, a wellness program for citizens, a skill building program that actually accentuates your property value. And now in terms of what you're presenting to the public for city councils, if you really want to stop crime, it's not about sending more people out there into chaos. It's about getting rid of the chaos in the neighborhoods. It's about supporting residents, building more job opportunities, mental health. And it seems like this is just fluid. It's like a spectrum of what you've been doing for almost a decade in District 4.
There were kids, carrying guns and potato chip bags and breaking into people's houses and rolling old folks for their money. When you talk about crime as being a prime plank on your platform, I'm with you all the way, because there are many ways to solve it.
Right.
We don't.
And I love the approach. If I don't want to put my son in it, then what are we asking other people to do?
Exactly.
Right. Right. So in order to reduce crime, we have to be realistic about what causes the crime.
Exactly.
And address those issues.
Yes. Poverty causes crime. Jim Crow causes crime. The racism that prevails in this entire state causes crime, and it focuses on people who are poor. It focuses on poor communities. And we need another. In that vein, we need
There's
another.
a lot of rich crime going on.
We need another commercial.
And you're watching the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching WJZZ TV, the coolest station in the world. And we're here with Letitia Johnson, running for District 4 City Council.
And we're going to get her elected. We're going to get Letitia elected. Letitia, if you had to give one message to District 4 voters, what would that one message be?
That one message would be that we have to come together. We have to come together, work together, so that we can move all of our communities forward. That's the work that I've done with Mecca, bringing 3 neighborhoods together, bringing our residents together, and identifying what it is that we want to see within our communities and moving forward to make it happen.
Well, that you said a mouthful there, and you've got a whole lot of goals that I haven't even thought of, and you mentioned many of them today.
And it sounds like these neighborhoods have a design plan that can be implemented for District 4, what the residents want if you're in City Council.
And I think it's important to make sure that every neighborhood has the ability to be involved in the conversation around what they want and what they need within their community. And my role and responsibility is to help them to address those issues.
Do most of the children in your neighborhood, which is East English Village, as I understand it,
Correct.
Do they attend East English Village Academy?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so
either.
either. And I asked this question for a
sense.
reason. You know, I was at Finney years ago, you know, back in the early 60s. I was the first track coach they ever had there. And then I came back, 40 years later as an administrator. And they used the school for a dumping ground. They're coming from Kettering, they're coming from Denby, they're coming from Pershing. They're coming from everywhere, and no sooner would we get the school under control than we got 50 ATs coming in. That's administrative transfers, and the school would be chaotic. As a matter of fact, the principal, who was my friend, Alvin Ward, got his jaw broken in a fight. And I at the time, I was doing the MEEP testing and couldn't be there to help him. But we've got, also, while I'm at it, talking about Finney, East English Village, why they ever took the name Finney off that property.
Yeah.
The Finney family were abolitionists.
Well, this speaks to the displacement. Not only did they take the name off, they took the students out of the school. The school servicing other people then.
Well, the school had closed for a period of time because they tore the school down and, rebuilt this new school.
Yeah,
and realistically, the reason you have so many people coming from everywhere is because there aren't many
Schools.
Detroit public schools on the east side.
Yeah, we've got Denby, we've got King,
They've been tearing and
we've
tearing.
got Southeastern,
They're still tearing down East Side.
and that's
Even
it.
as they're doing this.
Denby, King, and Southeastern, unless you go to the far northeast side, Pershing.
Huh. Yeah.
So you make a good point. Maybe we need to put another school. Maybe we need to build another school
But what I
in
like-
that area.
What I like is the idea that each district has its solutions, and there are people working on these solutions, and all they want is a seat at the table that's called City Council.
And we have some phenomenal community organizations throughout the district. And so I'm just excited to be able to work with them, to be a champion for them, to help celebrate their successes, to help them to bring resources to them so that they can help themselves to resolve their own issues.
As
Well,
democracy should be.
That's right.
I've got to get you. It's too late to get you talking to Keep the Vote No Takeover, but that's Helen Moore's group, which I'm a member of, by the way. But I have talked you up to all those folks. It's not too late though to get you over to talk to NAN, National Action Network, which meets at the church over on 14th Street every Saturday morning. It meets there 10 o'clock every Saturday morning. I can't always get there at 10 o'clock because I've got my WCHB show from 9:30 to 10.
It's a meeting open to the public, the National Action Network.
It is. And the National Action Network is headed up, the education chair is Helen Moore. And the president of the Michigan chapter, that's the Michigan chapter, is Reverend Charles Williams II. And Sam Riddle is the political director. We got to get you on Sam Riddle's show too.
Well, okay, we'll think about that.
One show at a time.
Well,
Yeah, there were some things that came out about me that were not true.
Oh, yeah?
Then that's got to be
Can we
disproved.
address that right now?
We can.
Yeah,
We
let's
can.
address
And
it.
I'll tell Sam.
We got about
He's
5
got
minutes.
he's got to know the truth.
Very quickly, I'll say
Yeah.
this.
Sam's
So,
my friend.
so people are aligning me with so many folks.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I am here as the voice of the people. I represent the people all day, every day. And so there was some discussion about me being Duggan's candidate. And let me say this for the record. I have not requested the mayor's endorsement, and the mayor has not provided his endorsement to me as a District 4 City Council candidate.
That's a strange rumor.
Yeah, it is. Well, all kinds of politics is a dirty game.
It certainly is.
That
It
was,
certainly is.
That was one of my great disappointments, because when I was running school districts in the suburbs for a number of years, I was always hiring black principals, advocating for racial justice and catching hell. They shot my house up in the middle of the night, and I had death threats and everything else. But when I came back to Detroit, I figured I'm going to be welcomed with open arms. How wrong I was! I found black men who were exploiting poor black children right in their own city. So, politics is a dirty game, and you just have to recognize it. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
principals had to compete against principals in other suburban schools. It was like a headhunting fest from 2010. The way they were closing things down, closing up not just jobs and opportunities, but people's histories here. They were,
That's very true. But the challenge becomes, okay, why are we doing the work that we do? If we look at the true reason, if we are truly doing it for the people, for the kids, for the community, then we have to step back. We shouldn't be fighting one another.
That's right.
The end goal is to elevate residents in the community, whether that's children or just all of our residents. So we have to look at the end goal and stop with all of the negativity, stop with all of the smear campaigns and all of that. It's just it doesn't work. After the election, when we are all meant to come together, it makes it that much more difficult.
Well, I also want to add that I do support Coleman Young II, for city council at large. I knew his dad. In fact, his dad followed my running career when he was still a state senator. And I also have to say this. I like to always recite this poem. This is a poetry program. Uncivil Warfare is a poem that I wrote on the 6th of January. And on this evil and fatal occasion of the Capitol building invasion, the traitor Trump's collusion demands his execution. And if you're against capital punishment, let's at least get the sucker put in federal prison for the rest of his thieving natural life. Okay, don't be a dummy who hesitated. Hasten to get yourself vaccinated. We need immunity in our community. Right now we got stupidity. A lot of people don't want to get vaccinated. We have Letitia Johnson. We've interviewed her here in the studio today. We're going to get this program spread all over the place, and going to turn this over to you, Sananda, because I think we got that red light on.
Okay, so please vote for Letitia Johnson. She's running for District 4 and City Council. She has put in an amazing amount of time into building up the commercial parts of Detroit and now the residential aspects of Detroit. Please come out and vote November 2nd. Letitia Johnson. And you have been watching the John Telford Detroit Show with Dr. John Telford and co-host Dr. Sananda Corrado on WJZZ Cool TV on Thursdays from 10 to 11 in the morning, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It was the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer who said that Dr. Telford has a warrior's heart and a poet's soul. Listen also to Dr. Telford on WCHB AM 1340, Saturday mornings at 9:30 and Monday evenings at 6:30. And tune in again next Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. And thank you for listening. Shoot. It's not my phone.
My phone.
I forgot.